What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman. Coming up on today's show, Mel Kiper just dropped his latest mock draft, and he has the Vikings trading up to get a quarterback. That's coming up in just a second. Then also, Alec Lewis, he had an interesting article that he put out that he says the Vikings may be, more cool with standing pat at picks 11 and 23 and just drafting BPA more than a lot of people think. But before we dive into it, guys, I want to break our comment record here on the channel. The most comments we have gotten this month is 1,000. I'm just putting the goal at 500. And I want you guys to type "skull" down in the comment section, flood the chat, spam it 100 times, whatever it may be. But let me hear your purple pride down in the comment section and give me a skull down below. So Mel Kiper in his latest mock draft has the Minnesota Vikings selecting J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, as this is the second mock draft that Kiper has the Minnesota Vikings landing the Michigan quarterback. Well, let's see what Mel's got to say. He says, at this point in the process, based on everything I've heard, I don't think the Vikings can afford the wait until number 11 if they want one of the top 4 quarterbacks. They're going to have to trade up. Are they going to give up too much? It's certainly possible. But if they believe McCarthy can be their long-term Kirk Cousins replacement, shouldn't they be okay with sending out their 2025 first rounder? I have McCarthy at number 14 on my big board, but I can see on tape why a team might take him in the top 5. He has intriguing physical traits and took a huge step forward as a precision passer in 2023 in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, and are catching his passes. He would have the playmakers around him to succeed as a rookie. And this was the trade that Mel Kiper cooked up for the Vikings, trading up to the 5th pick, where you're giving up 3 first-rounders. Originally I thought if you wanted to go get that Cardinals or Chargers pick, it would take both 11 and 23 and then maybe a 3rd-rounder. But Kiper's saying it's most likely going to take 3 first. And listen, guys, I'm okay with that. No matter what the Minnesota Vikings, decide to do here, if you end up with one of the top 4 quarterbacks in this year's class, I'm absolutely okay with it, especially if it's for a guy like J.J. McCarthy, who I'm a big fan of. He's got big-time potential, and I think, he would really work out in Minnesota. And I want to get to this. So this was from Dane Brugler. He just dropped his complete draft guide, and it is freaking awesome. He writes up great reports on, every prospect in this year's draft class. This is an interesting story he had around J.J. McCarthy, and I think it just speaks to who he is as a person and what he's going to be like in the NFL. He says before McCarthy signed to Michigan, he was telling other Michigan recruits that if they wanted to party and chase girls, go somewhere else. His class was going to be the one that restored Michigan to have that mentality and then actually go achieve it. He's different. And it kind of speaks to one of the biggest pros I have for J.J. McCarthy. And, that's just his intangibles. And it kind of speaks to his potential because just hearing that quote and hearing him tell other recruits that were going to Michigan in his same draft class, he wasn't even there yet, that if you are planning just to go there, chase girls, go find somewhere else to play. But a little bit more on McCarthy's pros and cons. I think he's got big-time potential, since he only turned 21 a couple months ago in January. I think he's an elite playmaker outside of the pocket, hence why he's got the highest completion percentage in the country on scrambles this past season. And he's won at every single level. High school, before he transferred to IMG, won a state title. Went to IMG, won another one. And also this, he's got a wicked quick release. And I think this matters when in terms of translating that to the NFL, just like how jump shots matter in the NBA. Like if you got a hitch in your jump shot, it's just going to be naturally slower, and it allows the defense to kind of catch up to you, just that half a second more. Well, JJ's got one of the quickest releases in this year's class, and also a cons for him. Not too much experience, only starting for 2 years at Michigan, but he's got experience in big-time games, so I don't really want to put, too much into that. But the biggest con in terms of throwing the football for JJ, if you go throw on his highlight tape or watches all 22, frankly, like everything's on the line. Everything is a zip throw. I think he needs to work on layering the football just a little bit more. And also, he's pretty slim. Even though he did come in the combine weighing at 220 pounds, there were some reports and speculation that he was weighing at about 195 when he was playing this past season at Michigan. If you're playing at 195 in the NFL, you are going to definitely get beat up. And then also inconsistent ball placement. That's one thing I've noticed about him. I think when he gets thrown off his first read, he can just be a little off target. It's not, nothing glaring where it's terrible, but it's just definitely something he's going to need to work on. But let's take a look at his advanced stats here for McCarthy this past season, because I'll tell you what, these, in terms of ranking in the draft class, not too good. His adjusting completion percentage is good at 80%. That's incredible. That was actually 6th in the class. But in terms of his average depth of target for J.J. McCarthy, coming in at 9.4 yards, this was actually 81st in the class. And his turnover-worthy play rate at 2.9 was 57th. His deep yards was only 75th at 706. And then big-time throw rate only at 5.9%, which was 37th in the country. But kicking it back to Mel Kiper's trade of the Vikings, sending 3 first-round picks to the Los Angeles Chargers, would you do it? Would you accept this trade? Give me an A for accept or give me a D for decline down below in the comments section. Hey, also, if you're a Chargers fan, let me know if you would accept this deal. But coming up next on today's show, what if the Vikings don't decide to trade up? What if we're sitting there on draft night and picks 11 and picks 23 come around? The Vikings don't have a quarterback. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on that here in a second. But first, I want to give a big-time shout-out to today's sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. If you guys download the Prize Picks app, and when you're making your first deposit, plug in promo code CLNS, and we're going to match it up to $100. Now, what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports made easy. How do you play? It's simple. You pick 2 or more 2 to 6 players and choose more than or less than on their stat projections. And then you guys can start seeing the cash roll in today. Even though the NFL season is not going on right now, they got season-long projections already out there. I'm taking the less on Kirk Cousins, 4,099.5 passing yards. Then McAfee is more or less is set at 5 receiving touchdowns. I'm going to take the more on that. And then also C.J. Stroud. You just got Stephon Diggs, former Vikings legend, so I'm going to take the more on 26.5 passing touchdowns for him. But hey, if you want to fade my picks or ride with my picks, just make sure you guys do it at Prize Picks. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use promo code CLNS, and we're going to match your first deposit up to $100. It's daily fantasy sports made easy. Pick more, pick less. It's Prize Picks. Download the app today. All right, let's talk about it. What would the Vikings do if they don't trade up? Because I think that is definitely a possibility. Because let's just say it goes quarterback, and let's just say picks 4, picks 5 come around, and both those teams just want to stick there and choose BPA. Well, what could the Vikings do? Alec Lewis kind of wrote up an article just explaining his thoughts on the Minnesota Vikings possibly, staying put at their picks. The Vikings also have the draft capital, number 11 and number 23, to make a massive move up the board. The issue is that involves major risk, and Minnesota has plenty of other needs, including interior defensive line, cornerback, and guard. Filling those voids later on is fine if you can land a franchise-changing player at the quarterback position, especially in an era when you have to beat the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen to win. And I actually kind of agree with Alec Lewis here. It was kind of interesting, like when I was reading that and I was just kind of going through my own thoughts of just everything. Like, look at a team like the San Francisco 49ers. They built an absolute wicked roster, and then they decided to plug and play the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy, and it ended up working out. I think there's many avenues the Vikings could go. It's either you go take a risk and try to get that franchise-changing quarterback and they kind of sandpaper the rest of your roster, or you build a complete roster around them, and then maybe you just go get a guy like Spencer Rattler or somebody in the 3rd round. I don't know, who knows. But we are going to be diving into some of the reports on these 30 visits that the Vikings have been having. As Alec Lewis said, Vikings got a need at edge rusher. Well, they're meeting with Dallas Turner, who could be the first defensive player off the board. And obviously with the Vikings owning the 11th pick in the draft, I could definitely see him going to Minnesota. But this is the player I love the most. Byron Murphy, the Texas defensive tackle, is coming in from Rap Sheet. One of the top prospects at his position in the draft is visiting the Vikings on a top 30 visit today. Obviously the Vikings do own, picks, or the Vikings do own the number 11 pick in this year's draft class, which obviously I'm thrilled about. I think Byron Murphy would be a great choice at 11 and also at 23. You're going to need to get some more defensive linemen in there. So I don't necessarily hate the Vikings, staying put. But if they do stay put, Sam Darnold would no doubt be the quarterback, obviously, for all of year one. And Alec Lewis had this to say around Sammy D. He says the Vikings are likely to ride with Sam Darnold in the early portion of the season, no matter what they do in the draft. But the future at the position remains Minnesota's biggest question mark. Coach Kevin O'Connell is buried in evaluation at the moment, meeting with many of the top prospects via private workouts. And, early on this offseason, if you would have asked me, what do you think about the Vikings not trading up for a quarterback? And, what would your reaction be? I would probably say it would be hit the panic button. But as it stands right now, I'm honestly okay with it. If we're rolling around draft day and the Vikings get to pick 11 and they take, for example, Nate Wiggins, and Nate Wiggins is the pick at pick 11, I'm cool with it because the Vikings have needs on defense. I am okay with them taking the route of just building a complete roster. And then maybe you go trade up next season, or you get a guy later on in the draft, or maybe you just bank on Sam Darnold living up to that number 3 pick expectations. But a guy like Nate Wiggins could be a great choice. Or my top cornerback, Quinyon Mitchell, who is an absolute dog from Toledo. Every NFL draft analyst has this guy as the number 1 corner on their board. Just love the swagger he plays with. So I would be thrilled that they took him. But maybe you want to go big fellas. Maybe you could get one of each. You could go corner and then also defensive tackle at pick 23. Well, Jer'Zhan Newton would be my choice, the big dude out of Illinois. 7.5 sacks from the interior last season. Just an absolute mammoth of a human being, coming at 6'2", almost 300 pounds. Very similar to, again, guys like Pat Williams and Kevin Williams. He's got a little more, mobility to his game. Or you could go this guy, Devondre Sweat, the big fella out of Texas, 6'4", 362 pounds. He's going to work out in the league. I promise you that. Plays with a ton of tenacity in his game, and overall, it's just got to be tough to, handle one of those big fellas in the interior. So the Vikings, they could go countless directions. I would still, be in the camp of, going and trading up, getting your guy. But again, there are multiple ways to go about this. And, no matter what, I'm cool with whatever Kwesi and that front office and the Vikings brass decide to do. But I want you guys to name a non-quarterback you want the Vikings draft for me down below in the comments section. Any prospect just can't be a QB. As always, guys, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching today's show. It's been fun staying up to date on the latest rumors around the NFL draft, but I'm just excited for the draft to get here. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Lock us in as your go-to Vikes YouTube channel. See you all next time. As always, Skol Vikes.